The flight from Dallas to Washington seemed ordinary. Passengers settled into their seats, the hum of the engines filling the cabin. In seat 25C, a quiet young nurse named Emma Carter adjusted her carry-on and pulled out a medical journal. She looked like any other passenger, calm, composed, unnoticed. But halfway through the flight, the captain's voice broke through the speakers, sounding tense. "Ladies and gentlemen, we've been asked to maintain a specific altitude. Military aircraft will be flying alongside us for precautionary reasons." Passengers pressed against the windows, gasping. There they were, two F-35 fighter jets streaking through the clouds, flanking the plane like guardians. Murmurs spread through the cabin. "Why are they here? What's going on?" A little boy near the window shouted, "They're looking right at us." His mother tried to calm him, but even the flight attendants seemed nervous. Then something unexpected happened. One of the pilots in the F-35 tilted his jet slightly as if searching. His eyes locked onto the windows, and then it happened. Both pilots suddenly snapped their hands to their helmets in a sharp salute, but not to the captain, not to the crew. Their salute was aimed at seat 25C. The cabin fell silent. Dozens of eyes turned toward Emma, the quiet nurse who now sat frozen, her hand clutching the armrest. No one understood why, but everyone knew this wasn't random. Whispers swept through the rows. "Who is she? Why would fighter pilots salute her?" Even the flight attendants looked confused, exchanging nervous glances. Emma shifted uncomfortably in her seat, wishing the attention would pass. But the eyes of an entire plane were fixed on her. Finally, the captain himself stepped out of the cockpit, his expression mixed with confusion and respect. He knelt slightly beside Emma's row, speaking softly so only nearby passengers could hear. "Ma'am, Air Command just confirmed. Those jets aren't here for the flight. They're here for you. Would you mind explaining why the United States Air Force saluted a civilian nurse in seat 25C? Emma took a shaky breath. For a moment she seemed ready to deny it, to brush it off, but she realized there was no escaping the truth anymore. She stood slowly, turning to face the cabin. Her voice, though soft, carried enough strength to quiet the murmurs. "I'm not anyone important," she began, her eyes lowering. "At least not in the way you think. I was deployed overseas as a nurse. Afghanistan, Iraq. I wasn't carrying a weapon, I wasn't in the spotlight, but I was there, inside forward operating bases, patching up soldiers who came back broken, bleeding, sometimes barely alive. I did my best to keep them breathing. Some made it home, some didn't." The cabin hung on her every word. Emma swallowed hard, her hands trembling. "Those pilots out there, they weren't strangers to me. They were once patients. I pulled shrapnel from one shoulder, stopped the bleeding when the medics thought he wouldn't make it. The other, I sat beside his bed for 3 nights straight until his fever broke. I didn't save everyone, but I saved them." A hush fell over the cabin, broken only by the sound of the engines humming steadily against the silence. In the window seat beside her, the little boy whispered with wide eyes, "You're a hero." Emma shook her head gently. "No, I just did my job. The real heroes are the ones who never made it back." The F-35s gave one final dip of their wings, a gesture of respect before pulling away and climbing higher into the endless sky. Passengers stared after them, their eyes shining with newfound understanding. By the time the plane touched down in Washington, Emma Carter was no longer just the quiet nurse in seat 25C. To every passenger on board, she was a reminder that courage doesn't always come with rank or medals. Sometimes it sits quietly among us, unnoticed, until the world remembers. The whispers grew louder. "Why are they saluting her? Who is she?" Passengers leaned closer, some raising their phones to record the surreal moment. The cabin buzzed with confusion and awe, but the woman in 25C only shrank deeper into her seat. Emma Carter's face turned pale. She shook her head gently, as though trying to wave the attention away. But the F-35s outside stayed locked in formation, their salute steady and unwavering. It was no mistake. Finally, the cockpit door opened. The captain, a seasoned man with grey hair and a calm presence, stepped into the aisle. But now his calm was shaken with curiosity. He approached slowly, his voice low but firm. "Ma'am," he said, leaning slightly toward her row, "Air Command has informed us this flight is under protection because of you. Can you explain?" All eyes turned to Emma. Some passengers held their breath, others clutched armrests, as though bracing for something monumental. Emma lowered her gaze, her lips pressed together in hesitation. For a moment, she looked like she might refuse to answer. But then, with a quiet sigh, she stood. Her voice was steady, but humble. "I was just a nurse, until 2 years ago. I served in Afghanistan, forward operating bases, treating wounded soldiers under fire." She paused, scanning the rows of faces staring back at her. "I didn't carry a weapon, but I carried hundreds of lives. Those pilots out there," she nodded toward the windows. "Some of them were once my patients." A ripple of gasps spread through the cabin. Mothers hugged their children a little tighter. Men and women who had once served themselves wiped away tears they didn't expect to shed. Emma's hands trembled, but her voice never cracked. "I wasn't special. I just patched people up, made sure they made it home. But sometimes they didn't." She closed her eyes briefly, fighting the memories. "I still see their faces." Silence filled the air. The usual chatter of a commercial flight was gone, replaced by reverence. For the first time, the passengers didn't just see a nurse on her way to Washington. They saw a woman who had stood in tents filled with wounded soldiers, who had worked with blood on her hands and fear in her heart, but never let it stop her. In the seat beside her, the same little boy from earlier tugged his mother's sleeve and whispered, "She saved them." His words carried, simple yet undeniable. The F-35s gave one final tilt of their wings, breaking formation as they soared upward, their figures shrinking into the clouds. It was a farewell salute, their way of saying thank you one last time. As Emma sank back into her seat, humbled and quiet once more, something had changed in the cabin. Strangers looked at her not with curiosity, but with gratitude. A passenger in first class began clapping softly, and soon the sound spread row by row until the entire plane echoed with applause. Emma didn't smile, didn't bask in the attention. She simply nodded once, her eyes glistening, because heroes don't always wear medals or uniforms. Sometimes they sit quietly in 25C, unnoticed, until the world remembers.